Hey guys, I'd like to welcome you to the Kortex Media Podcast, where we navigate the fast-paced world of automotive and more. I'm your host, Korson Schmidt. Here today, I have Sean Kelley. Sean is a decorated Army Special Operation combat veteran, best-selling author, and one of automotive industry's most respected leadership coaches. As the founder and CEO of Car Motivators, Sean has spent the past 2 decades transforming dealership cultures and empowering sales leaders across North America. Sean's journey from humble beginnings and military service to becoming Dealership News Consultant of the Year and Top 10 Sales Coaches by Ambition.com reflects his resilience, passion for people development, and a relentless drive to help others win. He's the founder of Cards for COVID, a nonprofit supporting healthcare workers, and the creator of Coach Track leadership software. Sean's mission is simple: to bring coaching, accountability, and winning mindset to the car business and beyond. It's great to have you here, Sean.
Thank you, Korson. It's an honor to be on your podcast.
No worries. I'm excited to get into this one, but before we really dive into it, do you mind giving kind of just a brief history of who you are, what's your business, your background in business, and where you guys came from?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I started off in the industry, in the automotive industry on accident. I had just gotten out of the Army after a 14-month combat zone deployment to
Wow.
Iraq. And yeah, I started off great as a civilian. I bought a house I couldn't afford on an arm loan just before the subprime mortgage crisis. I wrecked my car on the way to work. I was working part-time at Best Buy selling TVs, and I was barely getting by. And then, of course, as I'm walking into a job interview, I get a call from my fiance at the time, and she's freaking out because she tells me we're about to have a baby. So it was like,
Wow.
man, I can barely pay for myself. How am I going to afford a human being? So, but it was interesting. I was at a dealership purchasing one, and ended up that they said, hey, you should sell cars here, and I was like, what do you make? And they said, on a bad month, you'll make $3,000. On a good month, you'll make 10. And I was like, I was getting paid $3,000 to get shot at in Iraq, and I get to go home at night. Where do I sign up for this gig? So that's how I ended up in the car business, and worked my way up at the dealership side on the retail sales side, and fell in love with the auto industry as a whole. I just love the people in it and the opportunities it provided for my family and I and so many other Americans. And ended up getting my own dealership, and getting it that high up in the business. I kind of realized my true passion was, even though I love selling and servicing vehicles, it was more in the leadership side of things. And I fell in love with coaching and developing my people. One of them asked me to marry him and his fiance on the showroom floor, and another one made me their kid's godfather. So that's when I kind of realized I was on this earth not to, run a dealership or maybe even own them, at least not at that stage in my life. And it was that I need to be a coach. So that's how I launched my coaching business.
That's super cool. That's awesome. I love the inspiration behind it. And I bet you would have been a great leader helping your team actually take those next steps within the organization as well. Because that's one of the biggest things is being there for your employees and giving them that information when they need it so they can take that next step up and become that better salesperson or become that better consultant or that better marketer. So that's super cool. Do you mind telling the audience a little bit more about what you do at Car Motivators?
Absolutely. So we help automotive leaders achieve great results through their people and technology. And everything we do is customized for you as the dealer and designed to empower you. What I learned in, as being part of a 9-store group was that every, rooftop within our group had its own culture and its own, set of norms and its own market demographics and, different products with different strengths and opportunities. And I really, one thing that bothered me about training in our industry was that it was so copy and paste, like one size fits all. And, you're trying to fit a lot of square pegs into round holes. And you'd have a seasoned sales veteran that would go to one of the training events that we'd hire, a third party trainer or even do in-house training. And you'd have a seasoned sales veteran go to it and spend a whole day there or something, and then they'd come out of it like, oh, I had like one takeaway. And it kind of bothered me, like, man, one takeaway in a whole day, that's not a really good ROI if you think about it. I was like, there's got to be a better way to do this. And I wanted to try to eliminate industry turnover,
Mm-hmm.
because I felt like, okay, how come I can keep soldiers alive in combat, but every time I lose a sales consultant or a service advisor or a technician at my dealership, how come I can't retain them, you know? And so every time I lost someone, I was trying to figure out how can I keep these people successful and gainfully employed at my dealership. And that's kind of when I stumbled across coaching. And it was like this whole new way of communicating with and empowering and motivating and inspiring and leading your team and holding them accountable. And it absolutely blew my mind. And I learned, so I hired a coach to teach me how to coach, paid out of my own pocket. And then I built a coaching culture at my dealership. And it's interesting what you said earlier, about, being being able to be an inspirational leader. And yeah, now what I do is I teach other leaders. My mission is to transfer the coaching skills to the leaders in the automotive industry. I want to transform as many sales managers and service managers and dealership principals into effective coaches, because that's what it takes to really change the lives of their people. And John Maxwell talks about the 5 levels of leadership, and how when you get to level 5 with someone, you're developing leaders who's developing other leaders. And I feel blessed and honored to be able to get to do that every day of my career, where I'm working with the executives to make them better leaders so they can develop their leaders so their people can achieve success in the car
For
business, and they
sure.
can retain their employees. So overall, a dealership or any company that works with car motivators, basically they can expect more motivated staff, lower turnover, better results, more consistency, and more just trust throughout the whole team, and a better business
That's
culture.
that's super exciting. That's awesome because there's a lot of companies that go through people pretty quick and they can't keep that retention. As long as that you can keep feeding them information and you have team members that want to learn, it's really gonna make an impact on the company as a whole. Do you guys do in-house training as well as online training, or how does that side of the system work?
Well, great point there. That's another way I can further differentiate what Car Motivators does from training companies. So, training companies, generally speaking, you buy a login to a portal, and there's all these, pre-made training videos. So while we do have partnerships with, like I'm the official leadership development trainer for Infinity USA, and my team also does. We have a whole fixed ops department who coaches service departments throughout the dealership community, and we work with like Stellantis and things like that nationwide. But we have, in fact, I'm honored to say I get to speak at the Mopar conference down in Florida, at the Fixed Ops Mopar conference they do
That's
in
exciting.
October this year. That'll be fun. But yeah, I like, it's like, okay, I stopped paying for this training at a dealership, so now they kick me out of the logins, and my salespeople, what do they really retain, right? Like, what are the deliverables? Oh, I learned a
Hmm.
couple talk tracks. Okay, well, that, again, not a great ROI, and for the time and the money invested. So coaching, how we engage with our dealers is, I created a framework. I call it the Drive C3 coaching framework, and it's a trademark to my company. And but we teach it to the leaders we coach, because again, we want them to learn these skills. So we start off by giving everyone at the dealership, throughout the dealership, and we unique in that we have a top-down and grassroots approach. So we're always aligning the leadership with the frontline staff. Most trainings just like, the frontline staff takes it, and then the
Yeah.
manager's like, "Did you do your training? Okay, good, but do it my way." So there no one's on the same page. Well, with coaching, we have a top-down and grassroots approach. It's live. It could be phone call or virtual Zooms, but it also in person. We do group sessions, but it's, again, everything's customized for our individual dealers and designed to empower our dealers. So we don't just like give them training and like, hey, here's a fish, here's a fish. We teach them how to coach, and we believe that's how we're going to make our vision a reality, and our vision in that
Yeah.
we positively impacted the leadership landscape of the entire automotive industry.
No, for sure. So you're almost taking the time to figure out what they need help with within the industry, within their company, right? You're kind of sitting down with that leader and being like, this is working, this isn't working. Okay, for this, do this, and it's really going to help you guys. Is that kind of more of how your coaching process goes?
It's interesting you said that. What you just described there is what I would call a consultant sort of approach,
Yeah.
right? The consultants come in, and I talk about this in my newest book, Learn to Coach, Learn to Lead. So I talk about the difference between a training, excuse me, a consultant, a trainer, and a coach. So a
Yeah.
consultant will come in and figure out what's wrong, and then the consultant will say, hey, here's what you should do to get training here and whatever, here's some processes you need and whatever. And then the trainer will come in and give people the skills like, okay, so they can do it. Now they have the ability to do it. And coaching is, will they do it? So coaching is where the rubber meets the road on implementation. I always say, consulting is like, you go to a dealership and someone tells you what car you need, after asking you a couple, assessment, doing some sort of needs assessment. The training's like having the shiny car in your driveway, but coaching's like the fuel that makes the car get from A to B. And that's where we come in because, the car business, the showroom floor, the service department, it's such a fast-paced world and people need that accountability and that support. But also as a coach, I'm not telling them what they should do. I'm no
Mm-hmm.
one's boss, but after an effective Drive C3 coaching conversation, the people we're coaching are deciding what they're going to do. They're making the commitments, and if they build it, they own it. If they own it, they'll act on it. And then it's our job as coaches to support them in their plan and guide them through the obstacles that people run into when they're learning something new, and coach
Okay,
them
cool.
through those things and help them stay on track and achieve what they really want.
That's awesome. No, that's super cool. I just wanted to make sure I was clear on exactly how your process works, and that's awesome. I'll have to read your books to know more about the differences because you explained it there. But what else do you go through in your book that would be super beneficial to someone within the automotive space?
Thank you for asking. And my book is just like our coaching is tailored to real life situations at the dealership. It's like every coaching concept I share is backed up with a real coaching dialogue where it's an actual coaching conversation between myself and one of my coaching clients. And so it's like, okay, there's the concept. Here's why you do it. Here's how to do it. And I break it down. I have some dense educational, teachings there. And then there's the real life story and the results that came from it. And I think that right there, and I have stories about, where coaching a service director who was at the tail end of his career and he was kind of coasting. And, so by, doing our Drive C3 coaching process to figure out like, where does he really want to go in his career and in his life, right? That inspired him to try to become a general manager, and then to become a general manager, he had to take his service department dealership to another level, and it totally eliminated a mass of complacency where he might have just been, kind of coasting for 5 years, but as a result, his dealership grew and he got to become a GM after a few years. So, talk about a win-win, and that's just one example of many that are real life situations that dealers struggle with every day that coaching can help. And the beauty of coaching too, and this was on when I was running my dealership, I was making a very hefty income and had my wife was a stay-at-home mom and 3 kids and plenty of bills. And one of the things that gave me confidence to do what I do was when I realized coaching worked on anyone in the car business. It didn't matter if they were new to the business. We call them green peas is the slang term for new people, or a seasoned sales veteran or a dealership owner who's been doing it for 30 years. My coaching framework works on anyone, and as a result, I'm like, okay, anyone can benefit from this. What we work with on the dealership at the dealership, it's customized for them. They get to keep it and own it and use it forever. Any processes and things we develop. So it truly is a unique value proposition and something. Everyone's looking for like scale. I got to find ways to scale my business and make it streamlined and efficient. And I'm not saying that isn't valuable, but I'm one of those entrepreneurs that goes for like the blue ocean methodology. So what can I do that's totally different than anyone else and be totally unique in the industry? So what I'm doing is actually, bringing the personal touch and the customization back to people development, and it's truly life changing for our clients and transformative for us as leaders and coaches.
No, that's super exciting. That'd be super, and you're working with companies all around North America as well. So you're working with lots of companies, and you're probably learning stuff as well from certain people, expanding your knowledge within the space as well, which would be a huge benefit because you can't stop learning. That's one of the biggest things, right?
Right, man. You made me think of one of my favorite quotes. I forget. I think it was Socrates. I don't know who said it honestly, but it's like, stupid people learn from no one. Average people learn from their experiences, and smart people learn from everything and everyone. So I try to be that. And yes, man, I sometimes I get to coach a porter or a detailer, and I learn from them. And then other times I'm coaching dealers who are absolute masters in their craft, and I've learned so much from them. And it's been a blessing, and that's formed really deep relationships and partnerships. I had the honor and the blessing of marrying one of my coaching clients' sons, a dealer's son in Ohio, Tanner. That was an amazing. So I got to conduct a wedding there, just like it was pretty cool. And then we've got business partnerships with as a result, official, strategic, legal, operational agreement business partnerships, like with dealer controlled solutions, is an example of that. So a lot of really,
That's cool.
really awesome opportunities comes from doing what Car Motivators is doing, and I share in that profit with my company. My employees are part owner. That's something I worked hard on this year to make that official. And when we form partnerships with our clients, they get to share in the profits with that too. So
That's
it's
awesome.
pretty cool. All of us are rowing in the same direction and having a united front and a unified cause.
For sure. No, you're looking out for your employees, and that's one of the biggest things in any business, right? But what are some of the most common leadership challenges you see in dealerships today, and how do you help managers overcome some of those challenges?
Well, the current state of the automotive industry right now, I would say that the key word is volatility. The car business has always been fairly volatile, at least since I've been in it, since 04, 05. I think that, but it's funny. I just spent the last 2 days in Las Vegas. I literally got in at 3 a.m. this morning. So
Wow.
if I sound crazy, because I'm slightly sleep deprived. But that being said, volatility. The keynote they literally showed probably about 40 or 50 slides. I just made a post about this on LinkedIn. I just showed a bunch of the slides and how, the market was always like this. And then all of a sudden, like COVID hit and now it's like this. And on it doesn't matter what the graph of the chart was geared at. Was it geared at, profit? Was it geared at used cars availability? Was it geared at new car, turn, used car turn? All these different metrics. And it's like, as soon as like 2020, 19 hit. So the challenge with volatility is obviously, quickly and rapidly and effectively adapting in the right way, being able to shift your focus and your team's focus and pivot on the fly. And, we as humans, as I'm sure we all struggle with that type of change, and it's uncomfortable and it's painful and frustrating for our team. So, it creates a lot of, I guess you'd say morale lowers, employees feel frustrated and anxious, and paychecks, with the volatility of the market, paychecks are fluctuating, and that's hard on their families, which creates stress at home, which makes people more ineffective at work. And, that's another thing is like, as a leader, are you coaching the whole person, right? Like, do you pour into them at work and at home? Because I'll tell you this, happy, successful, centered employees that are healthy at home are going to be more centered and healthy and focused at work. And I mean, I promise you can't meet a car guy out there or a manager out there who hasn't, let's say, can't meet a manager out there who hasn't lost an employee due to personal life issues going on at home. So, we coach the whole person and help them find that stability at home, and then we can build off that at work too. So to answer your question, I think that the volatility has created a whole new slew of problems, but managers out there can embrace it. They can look at it as an opportunity, like I get to lead a team. I've been given the responsibility and the honor and the blessing of leading a team through one of the maybe the toughest times in car business history, and at least in the last couple of decades. And I think that's an opportunity. And if you embrace it as such, and you're willing to stretch your comfort zone and put in work harder and maybe smarter than you ever have, then you'll be stronger for it, and you'll build a whole new generation of awesome automotive leaders. And there's an opportunity for a legacy there.
For sure. No, that's amazing. That's awesome. And that's something that happened. That's just COVID, right? Everything changed with COVID, and it changed the way dealers had to look at their business and changed the way they had to run their business as well. And at the end of the day, I think it was a great thing because people got to look at a different direction on how to actually run a company. And I think it was something that was super beneficial. And then same with the tariffs now as well. I think it's going to be something, well, obviously not beneficial, but it's going to help businesses think in different ways to kind of, if they need to slow things down a bit or keep things moving forward, it's gonna strain out the ponds in the sea, and those businesses that are doing well are really going to keep thriving. For sure. Do you see more and more companies wanting to work with a coach within a dealership aspect, or do you see, because I know if you look at it in the say 2010, you'd have a lot of business owners that they knew cars very well, but they didn't know how to run a business very well. Do you see more and more people wanting to get coaching, wanting to learn more about businesses, wanting to learn more about how to run their dealership properly and really move things forward and roll it out?
I think one amazing thing about the awesome people in the automotive industry is like they've always valued training. I don't, I haven't met a sales leader or a fixed ops leader who can't attribute some of their skills to training that they've received in the past and their ability and their success to training they've received in the past. So everyone in the automotive industry values personal development in the form of training, but the problem is like with coaching, and this is the downside to being that having the blue ocean methodology, right? Is that a lot of people, and again, including myself, going back 10 years, don't know what coaching, I didn't know what coaching was, and most automotive leaders don't know what coaching is. So, there's often a negative connotation with it because maybe their old boss used to coach them, and their version of coaching was like yelling at them or screaming, or whatever. And it's not like, I mean, there's certifications for coaching. In fact, we can Drive C3 certify. Any Car Motivators coach has been through our coaching program, and then we can Drive C3 certify the managers we coach. But there's the International Coaching Federation. It's like a global coaching school, academy sort of thing. So there's like ways to become, but pretty much anyone can call themselves a coach, and so there's probably a lot of ineffective coaching out there. So people maybe sometimes coaching has a bad rap. Other times, and most times, people just don't even know what it is. So once people experience it, they're like, man, this is a game changer, and they're like, how have I gotten this far without a coach? That's one of the first things I said to my coach. How have I gotten this far without a coach? And that's where like my company, we can do a better job of spreading the news on what coaching is and how it's different. I mean, I'm writing books on it and podcasting on it, with awesome people
Yeah.
like you. But that being said, that's really the opportunity is like helping them understand what it is. If they knew what it was and how it could impact them, when they figure that out, they're all in, and it's very sustainable as well. But that being said, to your point, are they open to it? If I come in and I'm like, hey, I want to sell you coaching, I have to sell coaching by coaching them, so
Yeah.
that's the challenge.
How do you sit a dealer down and speak them through the process? Okay, we're not training you, we're coaching you. How do you sit them down and get that through someone's brain that it's not training, it's more of it's a coaching aspect?
It's funny. I'll start off by lightheartedly correcting them every time they say the training word. I'm like, oh, just so you know, we're coaching, we're not training, and they get a kick out of that. And in fact, I'll tell you a story. So I was just at NIADA, like I said, in Vegas so I was representing one of my dealer partners. We've been coaching with him for 8 years. He owns a dealer group in New Jersey. And congratulations to Paul Sansone Jr. because him and his team just got awarded a brand new Kia point for their growth and sales effectiveness and CSI
Wow.
and profit. So they just got awarded. They're literally opening it. Construction's done. They're opening it this like next week, I think. So we were in Vegas, and while working with them, they ended up developing this really awesome lease here, pay here platform. So we started coaching them on their startup there and doing all that stuff. But I'll never forget my first day. So, we do a coaching, we call it a coaching discovery call. It's literally like a coaching conversation. And then we visit the dealership and we do a cultural assessment. You talked about earlier is like figuring out what's wrong. So, we're kind of like, as coaches, we literally, the root word meaning of coach means to take someone where they want to go. So we
Yeah.
have to find out like where they want to go. What does success look like for them as a dealership and as an owner, but also each person on the team. Because every sales consultant has their own aspirations and their own why, and so we really need to know what those are. And then once we figure those things out, then it's like, okay, here's where everyone wants to go. So like, how do you feel about building a plan to get there, and like what could get in our way? And we just start coaching them through that. But my first day with Paul Sansone Jr., he said, and you can read this. He wrote this as a recommendation on my LinkedIn profile. So you got to scroll back about 5-6 years. But he posted. I started asking my clients, hey, would you like write a LinkedIn recommendation about how our coaching has impacted you and whatnot? But anyway, our first day with Paul Sansone Jr., he says, you're not an effing coach, you're a trainer. There's no coaching. I don't even know what that is. I'm like, okay, sir. I was like, well, hopefully by the end of the day, you'll see the difference. And he's like, well, whatever. By the end of the day, he saw the difference. And here we are, 8 years later. My team now is coaching all his dealerships.
That's
Again,
amazing.
I'm helping him. I'm coaching his tech company at these conferences, and he knows the difference. And if you read that review verbatim, he literally posted that on his LinkedIn profile. It's pretty funny.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, it's
So
got
what's
to
the
be tough
experience
to,
here?
yeah, it's got to be tough getting it through people's minds that you're more of a coach instead of a trainer because I think a lot of people, if you said you're a coach, they're going to be like, oh, they're going to train my team. But that's probably one of the biggest hurdles that you guys would have to get through is getting that
Right.
word out for sure. Can you tell us a little bit about your nonprofit, the Cards for COVID, and what inspired you to start it and what impact it's had so far?
Yeah. It's currently inactive in a transition phase. We're going to transition it from cards for, thankfully, COVID kind of went away, which is a great
Yeah.
thing. So we're transitioning it from cards for COVID to cards for care. So we'll have a similar mission in that we are there to, inspire and support the healthcare professionals that care for our loved ones and us when we need it, while also, giving, morale increases to their patients. And that being said, I was actually in the hospital back in December 2021. Came down with COVID, and like so many people, I just thought a week of bed rest would be the remedy, and I'll be back on my feet. And I was like, I'll be back to work next week, and here I am trying to control my destiny like I always do, and but God had other plans, and it was about 2.5 weeks in, and I wasn't getting better, and I passed out at home while trying to walk to the bathroom. I didn't make it, and
Wow.
woke up face down on my bathroom floor, in a puddle, on my own puddle, and so I was rushed to the hospital in an ambulance, and I had a very powerful, life-changing experience there, near-death experience. And this was at the time when COVID was at its peak. The hospitals were jammed. Some of them were running out of oxygen. And but God had other plans for me, and it wasn't my time to go. And that being said, that inspired me to write this book, The Visitor. What the Visitor, faith, where faith, prayer, love, and charity are God's remedies to survive and thrive. I don't even know the name of the book, so that's the second half of the title, but I just title them like like they are. But while I was in the hospital, my daughter Ava, she said, "Hey Dad, I made you this get well card. I can't bring it to you in person. You couldn't have visitors in the hospital, and people were dying all around me. I figured, if I'm going to die here and God put me here for a reason, I might as well like try to die doing what I love doing most, which is coaching. So I was coaching the nurses and getting them to open up and let me help them with what little strength I had left in me. And but my daughter sends me this picture. She's like, "I made you this get well card, but I can't bring it to you, so I'll just drop it off with your with your care package or whatever." And at this point, I'd already been through the worst of it, and I was in the step down unit where I was healing up, but people in there were still dying. But I remember the nurses telling me all these horror stories about like there was like a 9-year-old lady in the next room who she was panicking and going into hypoxia because her cats were left alone, and she was freaking out about her cats. And but the thank you card my daughter sent me had cats on it. She sent the picture, and I was like, "Hey honey," I was like, "I got an idea." I was like, "Don't make one get well thank you card. It's a get well card." I was like, "Don't make one get well card, make 50 of them." And I go, because I'm gonna have the nurses give them out to their patients. So my kids and some of their friends made a bunch of get well
That's
cards for
amazing.
patients, yeah, and thank you cards for the
Wow.
doctors and nurses. And they dropped them off, and there was one with the cats that got to that lady, and she cried. She said it was like, "Get well for your cats, so you can take care of them again." And she was like, it inspired her to like get better, and the nurse was telling me how it like made her tear up and it helped her. And so that was the inspiration for Cards for COVID. So across we had I think about 30 different schools participating at any given I think at the peak of it. And we would actually donate school supplies to like either impoverished schools or private schools who don't get funding for stuff like that. And then the schools, the kids that would have assemblies, and they'd make get well cards and thank you cards for the doctors and nurses, and get well cards for the patients. And so it was a very affordable thing. And then we would get testimonial videos from the nurses and doctors and share them back to the schools. So the kids felt like, man, they, even though there's this horrible disease going around running rampant and killing people, like they could make a positive difference. And so it empowered the kids, which was awesome. But moreover, like it helped the doctors and nurses who were just going through so much hell to heal people, realize that like what they were doing mattered. And so it
That's
was really
amazing.
was really a
That's
blessing to be
awesome.
put in an opportunity to do that, and I think that's why God put me there. So yeah, I want to continue that mission, and we need to shift it over to Cards for Care, so it's more focused on, I'd say, end you.
No, that's amazing. I love the vision behind that, and it's something that truly put a stunt to our systems, right? Our healthcare systems. And that's huge because I think a lot of the time our healthcare workers didn't get the appreciation they needed, especially with the times they were going through and how much work they were going through as well. So that's something that's super cool, and that your daughter almost came up with the idea. So that's amazing.
Yeah, it was definitely divinely inspired. All glory to God on that one for sure. Yeah,
No,
and
that's
it's funny because
amazing.
I wrote when I wrote The Visitor. It was like every morning I would wake up at about 3 a.m. and just and my wife was like, Sean, you're like quoting scripture in your sleep and stuff. And then I'd wake up at 3 a.m. and I just know what I'd have to write. And I finished the book, literally started it, and it was done while I had COVID. It took me 40 days. Learn to Coach, Learn to Lead took me 5 years to write, for the record. But that one took me 40 days. And then I finished The Visitor, and I hadn't published a book yet. And I had no clue how to publish a book. And I'm literally sitting there pondering, like, how do I get this damn book published, and then all of a sudden I get a call from one of my wife's friends, and I've known these people for years. And she's like, "Hey, we left an ice cream cake outside. Bring it in before it gets hot tomorrow. It's a get well cake or whatever. This is when I was home from the hospital." And she's and I'd given her some coaching on her business. Actually, she has a small business here in our local town, and she was like, "Hey, by the way, what you coached me on before you got sick really helped me and made a positive impact." Anyway, she's like, she's like, "How can I thank you for that?" And I was like, I jokingly go, "Well, you already brought me an ice cream cake, so I think we're good." But I was like, "Any chance you know a book publisher?" I just jokingly threw it out there. And then she
Yeah.
says, "Yeah, my cousin Sebastian owns and she had no clue that I wrote a book on, nor that it was on faith. Right. But she goes, "Yeah, my cousin Sebastian owns the number one, Catholic book publishing company in the Midwest.
That's
You want
crazy.
to?" Yeah, I mean, tell me it wasn't God's plan. And then, so she called, she's like, "Did you write a book?" And I was like, "Yeah." And then, so we called him up and he agreed to publish it. And so that became a bestseller. And then that's also funded Cards for COVID because all the proceeds from that go to the nonprofit and other nonprofits now that Cards for COVID's kind of, like I said, temporarily inactive.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I love the inspiration. I love the story behind that, and that's really cool. It really is. No worries. So we'll get back to the automotive industry. So it's always changing, rapidly changing with digital retailing, evolving customer expectations, and new tech. What trends do you think dealership leaders need to pay attention to most at the moment or
Yeah,
in the future?
that's great. I think there's several. I think number one is inventory acquisition, and that's the most immediate need because, like the manufacturers have, been restocking and they've gotten, dealerships have inventory again, but at the end of the day, it still takes time, months and years, like for the inventory to recycle and end up on the pre-owned lot. And, during cash for clunkers, it took a lot of lower price pre-owned vehicles off the market, but what's going on now, which is the kind of like the tailwind from the whole COVID situation, where just it's really hard to acquire inventory. So dealers right now are struggling to for profit, and that's mostly because of the fact that customers there's less units in operation, so their service departments, it's harder for them to maintain service retention and basically cover their profit through their service department because we didn't sell as many used cars over the last few years, so
Mm-hmm.
not as many units in operation for each manufacturer, and that has also created the tail end of that, which is less pre-owned inventory. So dealers really need a process and systems and consistency around, and maybe even pay plans around vehicle acquisition. The dealers that are succeeding most right now are ones that are really adopting software and technology. There's new software and technology popping up all over to fill the void of vehicle acquisition, going to private party consumers. So you need to get really good at buying from, your local Facebook marketplace, and there's software tools that are pretty affordable that do all that. So that's in the short term. And then, I think for service departments, there's a really big opportunity. We can't afford to make customers mad right now. You've got to really
For
take care
sure.
of your owner base and retain them and stay in touch with them. So proactive outreach, that's one of the things Car Motivators can help with. We can help you build business development centers for your service departments that are great at bringing service traffic in, customer pay work, which is great, warranty work. You can customize, the type of traffic you're wanting. So we can help you build your call center leaders and your BDC center leaders and team, give them scalable technology that kind of allow them to operate like a Fortune 500 call center. So we can do that. um, we've been doing that for a lot of our dealers, and then those people we train up from the ground up, so they're aligned to your culture, and they also know how to convert these service opportunities into sales. So that's another way you're going to want thing you're going to need to focus on to succeed is driving your service retention. Because I'm telling you, that there's a thing in the car business. Most sales guys that close their ears to this, but sales sells the first car, service sells the rest. So if you're not retaining your customers and service, you're missing on sales opportunities too. And then
For
for the
sure.
long term, and when I say long term, Corzine, I'll say I'm going to go 12 to 18 months. Let's say 18 to 24 months max.
Okay.
AI is becoming really, really powerful. And
For sure.
we are the true long-term impact of what that's going to have is none of us really know. I don't think really know how it's going to change things. But the one thing I can tell you for certain is that I think there's going to be in the car business, especially at least on the sales side. Okay, you're going to have product specialists like greeters who are basically like minimum wage entry level employees, and then you're going to have true sales pros. And when I talk about true sales pros, I'm not talking about the transactional guys that are good at you know one-liners and closing. I'm talking
Yeah.
about relational salespeople that build a community of loyal followers that would never buy from anyone other than themselves. There's not going to be like 12 car guys that kind of come to work, punch the clock, just try to sell a few cars and leave. AI is going to replace those transactional type of people. So
For
if you
sure.
really want to succeed long term in the car business and you want your people to succeed long term, you need to be creating the processes and giving them the coaching that will help them kind of really establish their roots in the business and in a relational way. Because I saw AI logging into a CRM yesterday, working the CRM like a BDC manager, but 100 times faster, creating tasks for employees, sending texts and emails to customers, and calling customers on the phone. Okay.
It's
So I'm
crazy.
just telling you right now that, like, if you're a transactional salesperson, just plan on, you might want to think about getting into some other industry. Or how about this? Master your craft, build the relationships, and aim for 30, 40, 50 cars a month. Like, do that and you never have to worry about AI replacing you because you're irreplaceable.
For sure. No, AI is something. It's the talk of the town, right? Everyone's looking into it, and if you're not looking into it now, you're already behind because it's something that's really revolutionizing companies as a whole. And
We're building
I
and
think
we're
it's
building we're building AI into our coaching system, which is really powerful.
that's super cool. Can you speak a little bit more about that? Like, are you making more of a CRM almost?
I can't speak too much about it right now
Okay, no
because
worries, no worries.
well, I could give you a high level overview, but our end user license agreement isn't mapped out yet. There's some legalities that are still coming into play, and I have business partners who would kill me if I say too much. But all that being said, let's just say we're launching it with so a lot of people know about Coach Saban, Roll Tide, Alabama, retired head coach of Alabama football. Well,
Yeah.
him and he has a business partner who was just on the cover of Forbes magazine. So
Wow.
and they just acquired within the last couple of years. They had a $700 million acquisition, a couple of Mercedes stores down in Florida, the second biggest Mercedes store in the country. Anyway, so it's pretty awesome and honorable to be able to say that I get to be the coach's team's coach. So my company and I we coach the Nick Saban's dealer group, and so we have a partnership with them, and that's where we're launching the software. We call it Coach Track, but essentially it is as one of my coaching clients said, Sean, you need to get everything out of your head and into a software platform that all of your dealers and OEMs can use to leverage your services. And again, my mission is to empower the leaders of the automotive industry to learn to coach. So that's what the system does. It is literally like giving. It basically gets my coaching framework into the system and process and allows for internal leadership-led coaching. We don't, like I said earlier, we don't want to just give them a fish. We want to teach them to fish. So
Yeah,
this does that. So it empowers the leaders to have, my company's coaching systems and processes that they can use in their shop or in their showroom floor.
that's
So it really
cool.
does drive consistent, leadership development and top-down, leadership-led coaching at the dealership level. So it's a scalable platform, and of course, everyone can access live coaching with Car Motivators coaches through it, and then our AI, which I can't get too specific into everything that it can do in
No,
that system, but let's just say that it really does drive leadership growth and communication skills for every manager that's using the platform.
for sure. No, that's super cool. And it's something that's going to revolutionize your business and the companies that you're working with, making it easier for them. Say they have a question, they can probably go to your new tool and ask it to help them get that answer right away. That's super cool, and it's going to help make everything more efficient on their end as well, and yours. Save a little bit of bandwidth on your end,
Yeah, and
to
the
help.
best part is we're launching with 50 dealers. So once the beta is
That's
done,
cool.
we've got 50 dealers ready to rock with it, and it's going to be rapid. And if you're not using it, you're going to want to use it, because if your competition is, then they're going to have the upper hand on you.
For sure. No, I've spoken to some dealers or even some companies, and they say they don't want to get into the AI because they want that human to human interaction feeling. They want it to feel human to human. Do you think that's something that's really going to stand out compared to all the other companies that are using AI to do all the outreach? Obviously, it's going to be more efficient using AI, but do you think people are going to appreciate having that one-on-one human to human, or do you think they're not even going to know because AI is so advanced now?
I think there's yes and yes and yes. I think, again, every person's different. I think that, generationally will play, generations play a factor in here. So it's funny because when you see, we have access to, like literally probably a couple hundred CRMs across the country, and a lot of them have AI built in. And, when you see the interactions between the AI and the customers, like some of the, maybe Gen Z, they're even like, hey, are you AI? And then the system's like, yes, I am. And then they'll start messing with it. Like, okay, tell me about I saw literally read this the other day. Tell me about the features of this Jeep in a rhyme, like Tupac would. And then they're like, and then it starts playing along, and it's hilarious. So I
That's
think
so
some
funny.
people, I think the younger generation expects it and will have fun with it. And then I think, maybe the older generation really might appreciate the human touch. But man, to your point about AI advancing, I mean, being something I learned in the Army, okay? The NCO's creed, one of the first lines is like, competence is my watchword. And then it says, I will remain technically and tactically proficient. And I think that's something that stuck with me. So, I try to do that in the automotive industry. So one of the reasons I speak at the conferences and, is to obviously build our brand and market my company, but also I go there to learn and see what's out there. And like, I just made a 5-minute video with one of the most advanced AIs I've ever seen yesterday, and I'm gonna post that on LinkedIn. So if you're a dealer watching this or an automotive pro, make sure you check that out. But like the AI is so advanced. I mean, I'm talking, like we use it and we try different ways. I made a video clone of myself. I can use an AI to write a script, like, and it knows my voice, my tone, because it's read my books,
Yeah.
and then I can have the AI write the script talking like me. I can put it into my video clone, and then the video talks like me. Now, you can tell it's AI because it does even more hand motions than I do, and that's pretty crazy. And then it's more monotone than I am, which is interesting. So people that know me well know it's like AI, but I'm going to tell you, it's not going to be long before AI will come across as real. So, I mean,
For
I
sure.
believe you can expect live video chatting with AI and customers through CRMs. Like salespeople that won't FaceTime a customer and online and show them a car. I'm going to tell you, AI will be doing that. So, I mean, how are you going to compete with that? And the AI, people
For
will think
sure.
it's a real person that they're talking to. It'll feel like a real person. So, again, if you don't, you want to establish those relationships, and you really want to learn to sell relationally. And I think that dealers are already. I mean, that's the cool part about dealers, right? They're smaller companies; they can pivot quickly, and tech companies are, like to take advantage of that. So there's a lot of AI companies coming down the pipe in automotive, and I think that it's gonna continue to grow, and it's gonna get better. And so just you want to, as a dealer, I think you need to be trying to mastering all angles, if that makes sense.
No, for sure. That totally makes sense. And because it's something that I feel like if you didn't get into like the start of the year, right at 2025 when AI was really booming, you didn't do your research, start looking into it, you're already behind in the industry, in any industry actually, just as a company as a whole, because it's accelerating so quick, and the AI is learning so much in the 6 months that it's really, I guess I'll say 2025 has been the year, but the 6 months that it's been here, it's been growing and learning a lot, and there's always new systems being thrown out there, and you have to learn the new ways from the old ways, but the efficiencies are even faster. It's pretty crazy how it's working and what the future is going to bring. And I think companies definitely need to start looking towards it because I think it's going to make a huge impact on any company, not even just dealerships or anything in automotive. Any company can really use this to make their business become more efficient and hit those goals that they've actually been wanting to hit.
Yeah, that's something. It's funny. Like as much time as I spend using AI to, in little ways. I mean, I know I'm probably barely scratching the surface, and that's something that like my team and I, we're all working to explore, and we need to up our game on that for sure.
Yeah, no, it's something that's going to be quite revolutionary, especially more and more in the future when it keeps expanding. Speaking on the future, what are some of the goals for Car Motivators in the next few years?
Great. And great timing on that question because this year we updated our company vision and our mission. So we are going to have a team of 50 coaches,
Wow.
excuse me, and we will have, we'll have upward of 1,000 different dealerships getting live coaching from us. We will have 5% of the industry, which is tens of thousands, thousands of dealerships using our coach track software. And everyone at our team will know each other personally. Everyone at the Car Motivators team will be aware of each other's goals and aspirations and be working to help each other achieve them. And that's really at the heart of our business. Like, the root word meaning of the word company means the people with whom you break bread. So we try to live by that at Car Motivators. And we're a faith-based company and Christian company, and we also, we care about each other's goals and aspirations. So, we truly, we're all coaches. So point is like that means we all have to know where we want to go and try to be taking each other there. We have to practice what we preach. So that is, as long as we're doing that, then the results will take care of themselves. And, the OEMs, it's cool how they went from coaching, what's that, to like, oh, you've got 3 dealerships years ago, right? And now they're like, hey, Infinity's like, will you be our leadership trainer? So again, I noticed I said trainer because I do
Yeah,
training videos on how to coach for all the Infinity leaders. And but to your point, that's at the end of the day, like we'll have expanded because everyone in the auto industry is going to know what coaching is, and we will have transformed, the majority of automotive managers into leaders who coach, and that's gonna help the car business continue to thrive into the future. That's why I do what I do, man. I want to give back
that's
to the
awesome.
industry that's given me and my family so much.
No, for sure. That's amazing. And what is your timeline on that? Do you guys want to reach that in the next 5 years and really get things rolling out, or is it something that you guys want to do in the next year to really get things rolling?
Yeah, so I've got 6 more years to accomplish that.
It's per it's a you can do it, definitely. You got AI now, making everything more efficient for you. You can spend your time finding the people you need. Use AI to find the people you need as well. You never know, right? Are there
That's
any new projects,
keep
books,
going.
or initiatives that you are especially excited to announce? So you kind of announced your new AI tool. You announced where you want to be with the company. Are there any others that are really going to stand out?
Yeah, I've got a radio show called Humble Faith where normal people can express their fears, doubts, concerns, and questions about God. And I get so that's
Nice.
been so I'm gonna keep doing that and trying to expand the reach that has. There's a lot of people with doubts and fears and questions, but they don't go to the right people and ask the questions. So I bring the right people in on the show and ask them the hard questions, and then try to get that information to the non-believers out there. And I think it
That's
really
amazing.
helps them with a different perspective. So there's that. That's a big one. And then I'm working on my third book right now it's called Inspired Satisfaction. Is the name of the book. It's based on my employee retention principles and premise. which, essentially is that there's an x-axis which has the employee motivation requirements, I call them. There's 10 of them, and then there's the y-axis which has the success perception. And can I succeed here and accomplish what I want? And then am I motivated and inspired by the culture? And if I'm there, I'm in the inspired satisfaction quadrant. And this is a self-developed, employee satisfaction survey that I created, and then we administer that, and it's amazing because it like shows the dealership leaders or the company leaders. Like we administer this actually at even non-automotive. We have a second company called Market Motivators, and we work with we keep getting referrals from our dealers. From the people we coach, they're like, "Hey, my wife owns a chain of Pilates studios. Can you help them?" So yeah, I coach some Pilates studios or some restaurants or some. So we coach all these different architectural firms. So so we started Market Motivators. So I want Market Motivators. At the end of the day, like our primary aim or niche is the car business, but so I want Market Motivators to continue to grow because there's other industries that need coaching as well, and that's a big one. But I'm working on my book on winning cultures called Inspired Satisfaction, and that I want to try. And this is going to be a long shot, man. But my goal is to have that published and hard copies ready for the Mopar conference in October, because that's what we're speaking on there.
That's exciting.
Business culture. Yeah, I'm speaking with one of my dealers who is a case study from the last Mopar conference on how culture has impacted their results. And so yeah, I'd like to have the book ready by then. And so so the Mopar conference, the radio show, and I do a lot, don't I? Wow.
You do a lot. There's nothing
Nuts.
wrong with that, though. You're keeping things rolling. You're helping people out, and that's one of the biggest things, right? And that's one of the biggest impacts that you want to have, and that's what you've said earlier throughout this whole show, Sean. Is that you want to impact people, and you want to impact people within the automotive industry, and that's what you're doing. And I think it's super great. What are some of the biggest challenges of running a coaching business?
Quite the burden to bear, I relish in the opportunity to carry that burden. It is the biggest challenges. I would say number one was duplicating myself. Because it's like I had all these processes and systems and how to coach in my head, and so I had to figure that out. That's really hard. And then the second part is just again, I go back to the whole teaching dealers what we do so they see the difference in what we do um, compared to normal training that they might experience. And then
For
and I'd
sure.
say thirdly, it's called in our industry, it's called the consultant's curse. So, you get clients and you get yourself booked solid, and then guess what? You don't have time to do what? Business strategy and sell your coaching. So that has been, making that transition because, man, I love my clients and they're like family to me. And now I've got I've got a whole team of employees that can handle the clients. So I really need to be shifting my focus and making my team members my clients, if that makes sense, and my employees my clients. But it's so hard to like let go of those relationships. Like, okay, you're going to coach with him now. It's like giving your daughter away on our wedding. It's like so bittersweet, if that makes sense. So that's just an emotional challenge I have. There's the scale, there's the lack of understanding in the industry that we serve about what it is, and then there's like the consultant's curse of time, and then you've got the whole emotional attachment to coaching clients, and there's many, many more. But all that being said, man, I wouldn't trade what I do for the world. Even on the hardest days, it's worth it.
For sure. No, that's the best. As long as you're happy showing up to your job every day, that's the most important thing, right? And as long as you can keep your employees happy with a smile on their face throughout the whole day, that's the biggest thing, right? You want to make sure everyone within the company's happy. Looking back on your journey throughout the automotive space, what are some of the most important lessons that you've learned? And what advice would you give to a young entrepreneur seeking a business in the space or seeking some advice through the space?
Well, I would say number one is what you said at the beginning of the show, right? Which is never stop learning. Okay. I stopped reading books for about 10 years, maybe 15, and it was probably the most stagnant time in my career and frustrating time in my career. And then the owner said, Sean, learn about coaching. And that from then on, now I read about 30 books a year. So never stop learning, never stop growing, seek knowledge, seek wisdom, and learn. The second thing would be go deep with something. Like pick something and just go deep with it. The true success and results come from mastery, and mastery comes from focus and toil and failure. And so another thing, like third would be don't be scared to fail. Like failure is how we learn and grow, and we learn so much more from our failures than our successes. So create challenging stretch goals for yourself and fail miserably at them and then learn from those failures. And then lastly, I'd say just get comfortable being uncomfortable because again, as soon as you're comfortable, that means you're complacent. And in war, I remember the first time a roadside bomb blew up on our convoy. It wasn't the first few months when we were hyper vigilant and we were paying attention to everything going on. No, it was 7, 8 months in when we were driving down the same road we've always driven down and no one was paying attention and no one saw the big pile of rocks on the side of the road with the roadside bomb in it. So, complacency kills. So stay uncomfortable. And that means trying new things, failing and learning.
No, that's amazing. That's some amazing advice. And you don't hear a lot of that advice, and because a lot of people don't like sharing their advice, but that is huge. And I think someone can really make a huge impact. You can make a huge impact on someone's life by listening to what you just said there. That's amazing. If you could go back to when you started your company, Car Motivators, what advice would you have given yourself?
I would have given myself, I would have told myself, don't be scared. I mean, or be scared, but just do it anyway. A lot of
Just
times,
go work through it.
well, a lot of times, we know what we need to do, but fear hinders us from doing it. So, case in point, I was scared to hire coaches because I'm like, man, these guys are expensive and I'm gonna have to train them, and there's no guarantee that they're actually gonna be able to do it. So I operated on this like, okay, you can work for me as a contractor and I'll kind of help you if you're good at, if you're good enough. And I always got mediocre results at best. And then when I almost died of COVID, and my fear for at least few months was completely eliminated. I wish I always had that, right? But point is when my fear was eliminated, that's when I decided to just hire people, invest in people. Like I built company benefits. We have 401k, 50% match on health insurance. We have the best benefits, and I hire people and I pay them really stupid well, and I treat them like they're brothers because they are, or sisters because they are. And I was so scared to do that before that it held me back for years. And only after doing that, for like giving first and having faith and hope and letting even though the fear might have been there at some point, just doing it anyway. So that's the advice I
Yeah,
give myself because that's what's allowed us to grow tremendously.
that's amazing. Having the confidence in your team to pick up your shoes and keep the business rolling. That's amazing. That's awesome. Well, I appreciate you taking the time today, Kelly, to join me on the podcast. It was an amazing discussion. I really appreciate all the insights, all of your knowledge within
Thank
the
you for letting
automotive
me share with your
industry.
listeners. I
No
appreciate it.
worries. I really hope this finds some people that can really resonate and they can hear your message through your book, and hopefully they buy some books and learn a bit more from you as well, because you have a ton of knowledge, and I really appreciate you taking the time today.